All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, Lynn Adams here. Welcome to training number 2 for the Special Education Advocacy. This is NAPSIA, the National Association for Professional Special Education Advocates, and I hope that you enjoyed the first training. This training is going to be about our team meeting. And what we're going to learn in this module, the basics of special education. So the basics of the process and how it works. A little bit about the IEP team meeting, developing the IEP, and of course placement. So it's important to understand the basics of the special education process. It's a continual cycle. So it goes from evaluation to determining the eligibility to implementing the IEP and then progress monitoring. Now in the next training we're going to go more into progress monitoring and the follow-up to the IEP meeting, so if we reject or accept and how we monitor progress. So we're not going to talk about that right now, but it is a continual cycle. And then, of course, annually the team reconvenes to discuss progress and talk about any additional evaluations that may be needed. But usually at the annual review meeting, there's no evaluations. And then the 3-year re-eval, they do re-evaluations. And then the process begins all over again, determining eligibility, implementing the program, and then monitoring the process. So as we discussed in the last training, we want to request all of our evaluations in writing. The evaluation should be conducted within 60 days of the time that you sign the consent form. They must provide qualified staff to do the evaluations. They must include written reports and recommendations, and they must be provided to you. And then you discuss the evaluation results at the team meeting. So prior to the team meeting, I recommend that you request the evaluation reports in writing ahead of time, usually 1 or 2 days before the meeting. Put that in writing to the school district. Review the evaluation. What are you looking for? You're looking for any type of diagnosis or category of disability. You're looking for how the disability is affecting the student's area of progress and development. You're looking at what the student's strengths and weaknesses are and any discrepancies in the subtest scores. So when you're looking at subtest scores, usually they give you an overall range or an average. But a child with a very low subtest and a very high subtest can have an average range, but they might have a weakness in some of the subtest areas. So make sure that you're looking at all of that. And if you have any questions, ask questions. Write them down before the meeting. You want to review the recommendations and make sure that you highlight and note any recommendations that you feel would also be helpful. You want to look at a statement clarifying the validity of the results. So whenever the child is evaluated, depending on how they are at that evaluation, this evaluator should provide a statement saying, you know, little Johnny was able to participate, he gave good effort, he was fully understanding of the directions, so the validity of the results are appropriate for the student. Now, sometimes you have a child who may be having difficulty, may be fatigued, may be inattentive, may be disruptive, and so the validity of the results may not be accurate. So what that means is that the child may have better skills than what are showing on the report, or perhaps the skills shown on the report are not reflective of what the student is, able to do. So the team meeting is held. There's certain required members, and they must hold it within a required time frame. Now, I suggest that you review your state regulations, and you can find them listed at your State Department of Education website. But there's certain required members of the team, parents of the child, and the child when appropriate. Okay. Not less than 1 regular education teacher, not less than 1 special education teacher, and a representative of the public agency who can commit resources and make decisions for the school district. This is usually a special ed director or a special ed liaison or a school psychologist or a team chairperson, something like that. An individual who can interpret the evaluation results. So somebody who can read the report and tell you what it means. So if you've had a speech and language done, that means it's a speech and language evaluator. It doesn't necessarily have to be the person who did the evaluation. However, it should be somebody qualified to read the results. And of course, we said already the child. So the key factors, we talked about this already, must determine eligibility. Does the child have the disability? And what category? Does this disability interfere with the child's ability to make progress? Does the child require specialized instruction or related services? If those are yes, all of them, then the team develops the IEP. Now the IEP is based on the parent and student's concerns, the key evaluation results, the student's strengths and interests areas, the measurable annual goals, the appropriate services and supports, and the consideration of the recommendations from the evaluations. Supports and accommodations are provided to enable a student to have access to instruction and participate in the classroom and the life of the school. These can include changes made to the environment, changes made to how instruction is provided, activities by the teacher and others around the student, specialized or modified equipment or supplies, and includes accommodations of state testing. Measurable annual goals are actually skill development goals, so we should look at, trying to provide the student with actual skills that are going to have an impact on the student's ability to make progress in the curriculum. And then, of course, you have to look at their current levels of performance and, where you want them to be by the end of the IEP term, which is usually 1 year. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we go into the progress monitoring piece of this training series. Implementation. The IEP is implemented once it is signed by the parent. So just because they've written it up and given it to you doesn't mean that your child automatically begins to get those services. You must actually sign and agree with it. If you disagree with it, there are some other options for you, but for now we're just going to say that you have to sign it to get the services in place. Once you sign it, the services and accommodations and skill development should begin immediately. All aspects of the IEP should be implemented by all people providing services to your child, everybody in the special education and the school staff who's working with your child. When you have the IEP, you have some options. You can, the IEP that the district is providing you is developed by the team, but it's a proposed IEP. The parent has to respond, and so there are 3 options for responding. You can accept the IEP in full, and then services will begin immediately, like I said, or reject the IEP in full, which I don't ever recommend because then no services are put into place, or reject the IEP in part. So what that means is that you reject pieces that you feel are inappropriate or missing or not substantial, but you accept what the district is providing, subject to discussing the rejected portions, because you want the child to get some services in the meantime while you, hash it out with the school district. And all accepted pieces should be implemented right away. Once you have an IEP in place, the team then needs to sit down and discuss placement, or where the student is going to be taught. Now, the law supports the least restrictive environment where the student can make effective progress and the IEP can be implemented. The different options are full inclusion, which is, in regular ed classes with all other kids, typically developing kids. Partial inclusion, which means that they go into that full inclusion classroom part of the day, and part of the day they're pulled out, maybe for individual services, maybe for group services, or maybe for smaller classroom sizes during the day. Substantially separate is exactly what that means. It's a substantially separate classroom throughout the whole day or most of the day where the child is not integrated and included in the rest of the school population. Even more restrictive is an out-of-district school where the student would be bused and the school district would provide transportation and they would stay there for the day to get their education there. An even more restrictive program would be like a therapeutic program or a hospital-based setting, or In some cases, students actually go and live where they're going to school, and that's called residential programs. So the team must determine, with the parents' input, where the student is going to be educated. But the law supports the least restrictive environment. We want our kids to be included. So some good strategies. Be prepared for the team meeting. Write down all your questions and concerns. We have a really great form that we use in the NAPSIA website. It's part of the members area, and it's a meeting prep form, and it just has boxes for concerns and the outcomes of those concerns, and it's really a nice way to be organized. But if you don't have that, just make sure that you write down everything. Never sign the IEP at the meeting. Always take some time to review it, think about it, and respond. You have some time. Don't be rushed. Don't feel like you're rushed. It's usually about a month. You have about a month to look at it, okay? So don't be rushed. Take a couple days at least to review it. Never reject the first IEP in full. Like I said before, then the student gets no services. And make sure that your student and your input is put into this process. It's very, very important. So here are some other strategies. Here are some other resources that will give you some other strategies. Nietzsche is very good. OSEP, of course, NAPSIA. So I wish you good luck, and I'll see you at the next training.